Good morning, students. Good afternoon, rather. I hope you're all able to hear me. Let me just confirm whether my voice is audible on YouTube, and then I will begin with the class proper. Good afternoon, everyone. Once again, good afternoon, everyone. Once again. Right. I have received confirmation for my voice, so on that note, I can definitely begin with the class now. Right. I have received confirmation for my voice. On that note, I can. Right, muted my volume so I can begin. Right. So, good afternoon once again, everyone. On a formal note, yeah. Good evening good afternoon everybody to unacademy.com, India's largest online learning platform. As usual, today we are going to do the newspaper session. Couple of hours back, I finished with the newspaper session of Saturday, but right now I'm live with today's newspaper itself, which is your favorite, which is the Hindu. That is the one which I'm going to be tackling right now. So first couple of minutes, I'll spend a bit on the intro on Unacademy, and then I will begin in earnest with the class. So first of all, as I said, we are the largest learning platform. We've been there on several platforms such as for CAT, for CAT, and we've been there for NEET, JEE, etc. Management, of course, is one of the areas where we are really coming up in strength now. And this year, I'm pretty sure we'll be producing several of the toppers in the country in this field as well. This is a brief introduction of myself. I think many of you might by now be quite familiar with me because I've been taking sessions at an academy for about 2.5 months. So that's pretty regular, right? So this is my name, Aritro Dasgupta, and I was an MBA from the Indian Institute of Forest Management in Bhopal in the area of conservation and livelihood management. I've got a decade's work experience in the areas of teaching, training, strategy consulting, and in content writing. My experience has predominantly been in India, but I've also worked in the Middle East and been published in USA. And last 5 years, I have been engaged especially with the coaching segment. So rank holders to several exams such as CAT, CLAT, DUJET, etc. have been my students during this period. So what all you will receive as part of the Unacademy platform? First of all, there are live tests and quizzes. So let me just show it to you on the right hand side. We have the live chat window. So whatever you wish to express, you may do it here. You can ask your questions, and likewise, I will also be quizzing you guys. There are daily live classes. So this is our channel. It's mentioned here. As you can see. Crack management exams, or in fact there's another session of ours which has been put out on the right hand side. तो इसको आप क्लिक करेंगे तो आपको सारे क्लासेस मिल जाएंगे, मेरे भी और बाकी ट्रेनर्स के भी. The course content is structured from our head office in Bengaluru, and of course, you get unlimited access. The moment you enroll on Unacademy, you get all kinds of sessions. So it's a pretty inexpensive deal, but once you're on, you can go through everything. This is a group of list of some of our top educators. You can take a look at the names, also their watch minutes and the number of followers they all have. It will give you an idea of the kind of academic merit the team at Unacademy holds. This is to show you that how you will receive the notification. So the next slide, for instance, this shows 4 more trainers, but more importantly, you now know how you will receive the notifications for the classes. So just take a look at so for example, if somebody wants training on profit and loss, there is a class for you. It's a slightly older screenshot, but the idea is just to explain you how things work here. This, meanwhile, is a slide for the batches. So you can have single batches with single educators, like it is there on the bottom of the page. And similarly, you can have full-fledged batches for the entire course, and that will involve multiple faculty members, जैसा आप ऊपर देख सकते हैं. We also have a schedule which is very flexible. So in case you have missed out on a live class, you can always check out the highlights later on. There are recorded sessions available. All you need is the right devices. You can even download the sessions and see it later on. We've always believed that language is merely a medium of learning. So even if you're not proficient in some language, say in English, as long as you're not studying the subject English, there of course you do need English. But apart from that, English alone is not your defining factor. We are present in multiple languages like Hindi, Tamil, Malayalam, and 16 languages in total, including these. So language really should not be a concern for you. You can get your doubts cleared while interacting with your educators. I told you about the right hand side, the YouTube chat window. Similarly, we have unacademy.com where I have a session today at 4 p.m. So you can actually answer live polls there as well. यहाँ पे भी polls हो सकते हैं you live chat window में, but it's a feature which is more prominent on unacademy.com. There are live tests and quizzes as well, which you need to be turned on for. So, how do these tests and quizzes work? Let me just explain to you a part of the deal. So, one thing is the quizzes which are asked on the spot, like we ask you here itself. That's part of the usual ongoing class. But more importantly, we also have something. वी हैव फुल लेंथ मॉक एग्जाम. तो वो कैसे होता है, वो हेड ऑफिस कंडक्ट करवाता है. उसमें पूरा सिलेबस आता है और आप सिलेबस के हिसाब से आप जा सकते हैं. पूरा कोर्स रहता है उसमें. तो इवन इफ यू हैवंट कंप्लीटेड ऑल द टॉपिक्स, इट्स ओके. आई मीन योर जॉब इज टू take it on the spot and do as well as you can. Even if it's a low percentile, no problem. Look at the next block. You can see that you have basically received the exact feedback per question, per topic, also the time frame per segment. So that way you know how to time yourself. I think now you know this year there are the cat format has changed a bit. There will be, it's a 2 hour exam, 40 minutes per segment, and not 3 hours, 1 minute, 1 hour per segment, as was the case till last year. This year there will be 3 batches on the same day of 2 hours each, so that there can be increased distancing between the test takers. You can also download the PDFs and learning material. It can be done on YouTube, but I guess it is even easier on unacademy.com. I want all of you to read this slide. Meanwhile, I'll just get the newspaper for today. It's right next to me. Right, so I think everybody saw this is my code AD09 at the bottom of the page. You may use this code to avail of discounts. So the moment you use my code while you are enrolling, you will receive a flat 10% off. Right, and you can actually go through each of these points, and the longer term a course you take, the greater will be the financial benefits. So I'll suggest all of you go for minimum 12-month course or maybe the 24-month course, because of course you can go for the lesser one as well, but जितना लंबा करोगे उतना आपका per unit, per cost efficiency is greater. Right, so on that note, let me begin with the meat of the spending some time with the Times of India. Jisme there are a couple of topics which I want to discuss with you separately. Anyway, so beginning with the topic, first of all, there's a picture of landslip which took place, you know, couple of months back. There was a landslip in Kerala which killed quite a few people around the place of Idukki, the Idukki district. Something similar has happened, although fortunately as yet there aren't many stories of loss of life. So this is between the Konkan and Southwestern Railway networks. A landslip has actually blocked a certain part of the land. This is in Mangaluru district, the town of Padil. There was heavy debating yesterday in the Rajya Sabha, but finally, three contentious bills did get passed. One of them is merely an amendment to an existing act. The other two are full-fledged new bills, which are soon to become acts or laws. So they have been passed by both the houses. Now it is up to the president. The opposition is not happy, and in fact, there are lots of protests on. And this Friday, which is the 25th, we are set to see a massive farmer protest in the state, in all the states, all India ban, it will be on that day. Right. So meanwhile, there is the Prime Minister, however, has confirmed that the MSP is not going to go out, minimum support price. So just to clarify this thing, several parties of the opposition have also moved a no confidence motion. I'll discuss more on this in the interior pages. The government of India has also tabled a bill to amend the FCRA. FCRA stands for Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, which is basically something which all NGOs need to possess. This under this act, every NGO or association, a non-profit body, needs to get clearance from the FCRA before it can receive funds from abroad. So under this, so the new provisions which have been sought, there will be amendments. As per this amendment, Aadhaar card will now be compulsory, not just a corporate Aadhaar card for the organization, but instead it will be for number of members within the organization, such as the key functionaries of an NGO or association, right? For all the office bearers, directors, and other key functionaries. So this bill was introduced this Sunday in the Lok Sabha by the Minister of State for Home Affairs, Mr. Nityanand Rai. This is to increase the transparency and accountability in the receipt and utilization of foreign contributions. Right. Meanwhile, the NBA, which is the News Broadcasters Association, they have written to the Supreme Court that hate speech should be properly identified. It should be properly defined. This is in reference to the news about the Sudarshan News. There's this channel called Sudarshan TV, and there was this one program called Bol Bindas, which has been banned by the Supreme Court for alleged hate remarks. So that is where this association writes that please define exactly what is hate remark, a hate speech, so that so there is a difference. There's one thing called offensive remark, another is the hate speech. Offensive remark, as the name suggests, is offensive, but it does not as such incite anybody towards violence. Hate speech, on the other hand, does the latter as well. So that is where there needs to be a proper distinction between the two. That's what the NBA wants to be clarified. The Deputy Chief Minister of Haryana, Shri Dushyant Chautala, who actually runs the JJP, which is an ally of the BJP in the Haryana Assembly, he has clarified that he will in fact resign from his post and probably withdraw his party's support to the existing government in case the MSP is discontinued. However, he clarifies that such a thing is not on the cards. MSP is not going to be discontinued. It is merely something the opposition is ratcheting up, the state opposition. Right. There's an interesting story from the extreme north of the country to the state of Jammu and Kashmir to the Union Territory now. In traditional Kashmir, so in Kashmiri tradition, there was this system of eating from the same plate. This is known as trami, and this is a ritual which particularly applies. It applies to daily life at home as well, but the term trami is particularly used for marriage ceremonies, and that is something which has faced a lot of flack recently, obviously due to COVID-19, where there is a fear that this increases the contact between people, social contact, and that might lead to certain diseases spreading from one to another. Um, so for diseases to spread from one person to another, so that social distancing can be maintained. This system of eating from a common plate has now been discontinued in most of the weddings which are taking place in the Kashmir Valley. In fact, special greeting cards are now being sent, or marriage invitation cards are being sent to the people, to the guests, stating that there will be no trami. That is because many people realize that a lot of the guests or potential guests, a lot of the people on the guest list, they were actually wary of this, and they were actually asking whether trami is part of it. So that's why now it is being specially mentioned. The story also talks about a particular family whose daughter was supposed to get wedded last year in August, but of course, August led to certain instabilities due to the revoking of Article 370. So that got delayed. It was supposed to take place this year, but then further got delayed due to COVID-19. They are not delaying anymore. In fact, that is probably the trend with many people. Just the small change, which is Trami being removed. In fact, a lot of younger people from the newer generations who are not wedded to the old concepts, they are saying that this is actually a great move, because पहले क्या होता था, if you don't arrive on time due to some reason and you don't start the trami, then your meal gets to completely delayed. You do not eat with the rest of the guests at that time. You wait for the next lot, next batch. So that takes a lot of time for busy young people, or even older people who are busy with several things. This could have been a bit of a drawback. So that seems to be on the cards for a reform. Right. Moving further ahead, I'm done with the first page. Moving on to some of the local pages, the usual format, first page and the local pages. Then I move to the editorial, international business and sports. You don't get a lot of questions from the local pages, which is why I don't want to go too deep into it. But a couple of things do have nationwide interest, such as the RRTs. Now, there's something called Regional Rapid Transit System. Right. So what is the RRTS? I think I had told you earlier. This is sort of a circular track from around Delhi. It's not a metro. It is for long distance travel. So basically, there will be three circuits. This is RRTS, a Rapid Road Transport System. So instead of a metro which caters to point small places in a city, hundreds of points, this only looks at the major junctions across the cities, right? So not within a city, but inter-city. So there are three circuits which have been built, which are mooted. One is Delhi, Gurugram, Alwar in Rajasthan, Gurugram in Haryana. So immediately outside Delhi, both of these. Another is Delhi, Ghaziabad and Meerut, both in Uttar Pradesh. And the third one is Delhi to Panipat. Panipat, of course, also in Haryana, but in a different part of Haryana. It's in central Haryana, unlike Gurugram, which is on the southwest. So, looking into this entire procedure, what they are going to do now is construction is set to begin now, in spite of the distancing norms and of course the movement restrictions due to the pandemic. They are not going to apply right now. This construction is deemed as essential, so it is going to begin anytime soon. One of the particular stations on which there's a lot of emphasis is in northeastern Delhi, known as Sarai Kale Khan. You will just have to excuse me for a moment. I need to. Uh, the doorbell rang just for a moment, please. Right, thanks. It's been dealt with, so no issues there. Yeah, I can see somebody else has also joined the session. So whoever it is, do say hello. It'll be great to interact. I can see somebody else here as well. Okay, so yeah, I was talking to you about the RRTS. So there are three circuits. Sarai Kale Khan, which is in northeastern Delhi, or rather northern Delhi. This is going to be an epicenter for all the three junctions. All three junctions will actually converge there. Not just that, there's one more very interesting thing about Kale Khan is that there is a railway station there. There is a metro station as part of the Pink Line, the Sarai Kale Khan metro station, the Sarai Kale Khan railway station as well. There is also a bus stand, which is an interstate bus terminus, something like that, and there is of course roadways as well there. So that means there are four different and of course the RRTS. Four different things will converge. This actually reminds me of Nagpur. Nagpur at the heart of the country has a four-level bridge which has for four different transport communications. So this too has something like this. The Hazrat Nizamuddin station is nearby, so is the Sarai Kale Khan interstate bus terminus, and of course the Sarai Kale Khan RRTS station and the Sarai Kale Khan metro station as well as part of the Pink Line. So all of this will converge at one spot. So the Delhi Ghaziabad route has been clarified here. This will include New Ashok Nagar, Ashok Vihar, Sahibabad, Ghaziabad, Duhal, Muradnagar, Modi Nagar South, Meerut South, and several other stations as well. So the National Capital Region Transport Corporation and the DMRC, which is Delhi Metro Rail Corporation, the officials are jointly working on this thing. So there is a rule which prohibits junk food from being sold near schools. This, however, is something which the CAIT or Confederation of All India Traders has opposed because this is a 2 crore rupees business which is going to be hurt. They have written to the Union Health Minister because suggesting that this new rule is going to put a lot of trouble to neighborhood shops because many of them are near schools. They can't really change anything because they are actually located at a spot. Now the school happens to be located in their vicinity is not something these small shoppers can actually work on. All the work, civil construction that was taking place in Delhi as part of the LAD scheme, LAD stands for Local Area Development, that will be hit. Just like the MP LADs fund, a lot of that has been held. Similarly, at the states as well, Delhi, we are talking of the MLA LAD fund is being withheld to some extent due to the COVID-19, due to several other costs which have risen. A lot of the funds will be diverted towards that. The Delhi State Assembly, which formed a panel headed by Sri Raghav Chaddha to probe into the work of Facebook during the Delhi riots, which took place in February in northeastern Delhi. The Vice President of Facebook India, Mr. Ajit Mohan, he skipped the first hearing. So he has been summoned once again. September 23rd is when he will have to report again. So let's see how things work then. A study was conducted for the state of Haryana. I think many of you know today is 21st of September. So today is actually the date when all the schools are set to, many of the schools are set to open as part of Unlock 4 guidelines. So students between classes 9 to 12 will be students between classes 9 to 12 will be part of the scheme. Those below class 9 will not be invited asked as yet. That'll be for the later. In Delhi, it has been delayed to after October because 5th October, tak no schools to begin in Delhi, but in Haryana they are opening. So a study was held, a survey to gauge parents' mood, and if you look at the whole state, then 84% of children, of parents whose children go to government schools, and 73% of parents whose children go to private schools have no objection to their children because obviously their children are missing out on valuable education. Um, so total 1,36,847 parents were contacted during this thing. Out of them, 1,14,643 in total are willing to go ahead. This is for government schools. The private schools figure is the surveyed is much less. Less than 10,000 were surveyed. Little more than 7,000 said yes. The district of Fatehabad tops the table for government schools with 91% willing to let their kids rejoin, but Panchkula is at the bottom at 69%. 100% of parents whose children are in private schools in Hisar are ready to let them leave, go to rejoin school. But in Kurukshetra, the trend is complete opposite. Only a third of the parents surveyed are willing to let their kids go. In Gurugram and Faridabad, the figure is at 48 and 64% respectively for the private schools. In Nuh, the figure stands at 87% for government schools. However, everybody who's going to schools, government or private, they need to carry all the districts of Haryana and rest of the country as well. They need to carry letters of consent from their parents, and if needed, also from medical officers. Uh, the families of migrant workers who died during the first few phases of the lockdown, their families are looking for compensation if it's possible. Farmer protests, however, are continuing unabated in Punjab and Haryana. The Bharatiya Kisan Union has been speaking to several farmer groups, and the idea is that so in Punjab, farmer associations, around 30 odd groups burnt these bills as a protest against this thing. Mr. Sukhbir Singh Badal, who is actually the president of the Shiromani Akali Dal, the SAD, which is an ally of the BJP at the center, he has written to the President of India, Sri Ramnath Kovind, urging him not to sign these bills. Now that the bills have been passed at the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, it is only the President who can delay the signature, and in fact, he can delay it forever. You know, the idea behind this thing is one can actually delay for a really long time. So that is the idea which is being mooted right now. The president has spoken out about the new education policy, and he says that the youth in Jammu and Kashmir will be able to realize their dreams because of this. Each region will now be well protected. The cultural ethos. Schools in four northeastern states are also set to begin with their classes today. These are in the states of Mizoram, Meghalaya, Nagaland, and Assam. Moving on to the editorial pages, there's a lot of important articles today. One of them is about cricket and how cricket has restarted. The IPL being such an important part of the calendar for several years now. People, sort of support, passionately the IPL. This year it has seen the longest delay due to COVID-19, but fortunately now the games are taking place in the United Arab Emirates. Three different cities: Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and Dubai hosting the majority of the matches. 44 of the 56, Sharjah hosting the other 12 matches. There's much discussion on the bio bubble and how players' careers may have been affected. Domestic cricket has been held off for a while now, but fortunately, cricket is the winner. Finally, matches have restarted. There'll be total of 60 games. So 56 I mentioned, that was the first round. There'll be obviously the qualifiers after that as well. IPL has never faced such challenges this year. Even in 2009 and in 2014, when the Lok Sabha elections clashed and the government was not able to assure security, even then, 2009 the tournament was outsourced to South Africa. 2014, the first stage which clashed with the elections was held in the United Arab Emirates, but never has it been such a challenge as this year. So finally, cricket is the winner. There's an article by Mr. Surit Parthasarathi. He's an advocate practicing at the Madras High Court, and he has spoken out about hate speech and exactly the kind of definitions I was talking to you earlier today on how there is a distinction between uh, offensive remark versus hate speech. While offensive remark is merely offensive, hate speech is offensive plus it uh, incites a certain group towards violence. He has also quoted something which one of the professors had once mentioned about the press. It's Professor Waldron, who's of course a scholar, and he says that utterances that incite violence and hatred is what defines, and usually this is in the category of minorities. Right. So Mr. Parthasarathy also quotes sections of the Indian Penal Code, section 153A and the section 295A of the Indian Penal Code, which do talk about press, this hate speech, but it is not very clear. It is rather ambiguous. So even the Article 19.2 of the Constitution does somewhat refer to this thing, but as I said, it is not fully well understood, which is why we need a new code. A new Indian Penal Code should have a certain proper definition, which the Supreme Court has to define. There are also lots of wrong facts which were presented in this thing. So, what about wrong facts? That is also something which does need to be seen. When deliberately wrong facts are given by certain sections of the media, that is something which needs to be looked in as well. I just connect the charger. Yes, Soumya, good afternoon. And good to have you here. I don't really know Prankur's class. When does it begin? I don't know. Maybe it's going on right now. I'm really not sure. एक बार आप चेक कर लीजिए. We have that group ना, Telegram group. तो उसमें सारा डिटेल मिल जाएगा आपको. Right. I now want to talk to you about the an editorial piece on the new farmer bills, new agriculture bills. So this article has been written by Professor Himanshu. He's an associate professor, Center for Economic Studies and Planning, part of the School of Social Studies at the Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi. He quotes the Prime Minister, and in what the Prime Minister says, that it is the opposition which is misleading the people, the farmers, when it comes to these three bills. What are these three bills? Let me take out the names once again. One is the Farmers' Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion Facilitation Bill 2020. Another is the Farmers' Empowerment and Protection Agreement of Price Assurance and Farm Services Bill 2020. And the third one is merely an amendment to an existing law, which is the Essential Commodities Act 1955, which has now been amended in 2020. Uh, Lots of organizations are against this, and he says that the writer says that the opposition does have a certain justification in this case. He speaks about, in particular, the case with Bihar. Bihar is a state which did abolish the APMCs in 2006. APMCs are agricultural produce market committees. So after APMCs were abolished, it was expected that the farmers would gain more money directly, but that did not happen. He's talking about maize, for instance. Farmers used to receive the MSP of 1850 per quintal of maize, but then it dropped to barely around 1000. So there is often this myth that it is middlemen who are always greedy and who do not let farmers earn their money, who exploit the farmers. But that is not always true. He says that on the ground there is a lot of unity between the farmer groups and the trader groups who are based around these mandis. The mandis do have their flaws, and he does says that the APMC is not getting completely abolished. Their power is not removing, but with this law, what happens is it opens up this thing towards privatization and towards corporatization. In fact, if we look at the wholesale price index, WPI is one of the measures of inflation. We have seen a massive deceleration in farm gate prices for most agricultural produce. So decline in basmati rice, for instance, by more than 30%, despite higher international prices, suggests that the farm crisis is very much on right now. There are also these ad hoc intentions by governments, such as raising import duties on masoor and a ban on onion exports. Onion export has suddenly stopped. Even one which was on the several trucks which were actually in transit was suddenly stopped overnight. This led to some of our neighboring countries like Sri Lanka and Bangladesh's outrage because they had already been assured of these supplies. So that was suddenly, changed. There's also lack of consultation with the other political parties, with other groups. That's what the writer talks about. He says that the farmers have been protesting since June. The opposition only came up right now. So he says that opposition provoking the farmers is not correct, because he says that the farmers were protesting right from June when the first Essential Commodities Act amendment was tabled. The opposition has only joined in now. So that's what he speaks about. In addition, he speaks about the challenges with the GST implementation as well, which played a role here. Yes, Soumya, I've already answered, I think, your question. Do let me know, right? Okay. There are two more articles which I would like to read out to you from the editorial page. One is relating to China. The article is actually an extract from a certain book which has been released. This book is set to release at the end of this month on September 30th. तो उसी का एक extract है after due permission from the writer. Who's the writer? He is Mr. Anant Krishnan, who was a reporter with the Hindu and the India Today from 2009 to 18. He covered China extensively, and his new book is India's China Challenge: A Journey Through China's Rise and What It Means for India. So this is published by HarperCollins, one of the leading publishing houses in the country, in the world, in fact, and priced at 599. So he's spoken about Xi Jinping and how Xi Jinping has combined the traditional communism with a modern sense of right-wing nationalism to win his enormous power. He speaks about how after Mao Zedong, when there was Deng Xiaoping, there was a gradual move towards a more democratic form of government, at least at the top. Even though on the ground China never was a democracy, never been, but at least the party was functioning as a sort of a group in adherence with bureaucrats. This is such a large country, so a sort of a decentralized structure was formed, and this continued after Deng Xiaoping's successors Jiang Zemin and Hu Jintao. But 2012 was actually a critical year. 2012 is when Xi Jinping got appointed, and he became the president of China. And it is around this Xi Jinping, and it is around this time that there was a major case which took place. The Bo Xilai scandal took place, and after that, the Chinese government changed a lot. In fact, one of the writers who spoken about him is a legal scholar called Jiang Shigong. He's actually one of the leading, uh, shall we say, influential intellectuals or influential scholars in China right now. So he has spoken about how Xi Jinping has actually leveraged this thing, and how the traditional Chinese model is now really working. The assertive China, which is looking at. So, what impact does this have on India? This is something um, which does need much debate. And so the writer has given us sort of a blueprint on what India can expect. Right, so see if you can would like to buy this book. It will be released on 30th September. Always good to read books. I'll start with a book review session very soon. Okay, so the final article on book review series, rather, the final article on this page is Great Power and Little Responsibility. This is written by Mr. Sriram Cholia, who's Dean of the Jindal School of International Affairs. OP Jindal University, one of the most successful recent universities from the district of Sonipat in So today, by the way, September 21st is International Day of Peace. This is an occasion for deep reflection about the prevalence of war. However, there are lots of wars which are taking place right now. So the writer speaks about 8 countries, which are Afghanistan, Yemen, Syria, Turkey, Somalia, Iraq, Mexico, and Libya. They all suffered 1,000 plus deaths last year due to a war or a war-like situation. This is as per the data from the World Population Review. If one includes places like West Africa, the Maghreb region, or the Sahel Desert, this is North and West Africa, then another 25 countries have been ravaged by deadly wars. Around 79.5 million people were displaced at the end of 2019, not just due to last year, but over the period of time due to armed conflicts, persecution, and other reasons. This is as per the United Nations Refugee Agency, the UNHCR, or the High Commission for Refugees. So he's also speaking about 3 countries in particular, which is USA, Russia, and China, which on paper, in theoretically, they are actually the vanguards of peace globally because they are among the permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. However, their impact is very strong on all the wars right now. US, for instance, is shamelessly peddling arms to Saudi Arabia and UAE in the name of national security, but that's actually leading to millions of ordinary people being bullied in the impoverished nation of Yemen. This is merely to counter Iran because Iran also has a certain influence on Yemen. Likewise, Russia's impact on Syria. China, not to be left behind. China has started something of a Cold War in East and Southeast Asia, also the South Pacific. China's increasingly aggressive stance with its neighbors, such as India, Vietnam, Philippines on the seas, with Japan, with Korea, with Taiwan, Hong Kong. This has actually seen a lot of instability in this region as well. China has been supplying arms to South Sudan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and of course to Pakistan and Myanmar. Mm, some bodies, such as the European Union and the African Union, have been trying to assuage these warfares, but not much is taking place. So, as today is International Day of Peace, one must listen to the silence of guns rather than its noise. Okay, moving on to some of the more local pages towards South India. There's heavy rain in some of the districts of Karnataka, such as in Udupi and Dakshin Kannada. The number of new cases in Delhi has actually dropped to below 4,000 for the first time in a couple of weeks. There's a story about a temple in the state of Andhra Pradesh. There was this dynasty called the Kakatiya dynasty, which had built a temple on their patron goddess. This was in a city right next to Amravati, which is proposed as one of the 3 new capitals of the states. So actually, the ruler was Emperor Ganapati Deva, who was from, as I said, the Kakatiya dynasty. Uh, but this temple has now been converted in abode of the local goddess Bala Sulamma, who's actually another avatar of goddess Durga, another name for goddess Durga. There was this temple used to have Kakatiya Devi, who, as I said, is the patron goddess of the Kakatiya dynasty. This is the village of Dharani Kota. The villagers had no idea that this is how historical the temple was. So it was much neglected. But then there was a certain team of scholars from Chennai who discovered this. There's the Temple Survey Project from the Archaeological Survey of India, Chennai, led by former superintendent archaeologist. His name is D. Kanna Babu. They discovered that this was used to be a massive temple which has been converted in the name of the local deity. So, Ganpata Deva was somebody who did invade a number of territories nearby, uh, and of course, later on, he also made use of marriages, social ties through his daughter to expand his empire in South India. Kakatiya dynasty was one of the major dynasties of the south. Okay, Pug marks have been discovered near an NTPC plant in Ramagundam. Ramagundam is in the Warangal and Karimnagar districts of Telangana. So वहाँ पे NTPC National Thermal Power Corporation उनका एक plant है उसके पास pug marks have been discovered. So perhaps tigers are there nearby. Pug marks of tigers, I mean. ठीक है. There is some Maoist activity in Telangana, so the police has ramped up its operations to nab these Maoist cadres. The IUML, which is Indian Union Muslim League, their MPs have objected to the delisting of martyrs. So two of the martyrs were recently removed from the list of freedom fighters. This is being, sort of claimed against. 12 parties together have given a no confidence motion. Which are these 12 parties? The Congress, the Trinamool Congress, DMK, RJD, TRS, NCP, AAP, CPI, CPIM, JDS, IUML, and the Kerala Congress. They have all, Kerala Congress money, they have all come up against this particular thing. Senior Congress leader Mr. Ahmed Patel and Rajya Sabha and also the DMK leader, Mr. Tiruchi Siva, they have repeatedly spoken out against the new farm ordinances. There was quite a bit of this thing. Quite a few MPs were have been suspended as well, including Mr. Derek O'Brien from the Trinamool Congress, a famous quiz master of in the past. Dr. Harshvardhan, who's the health minister, he has clarified that a vaccine strategy is very much on, that there are about 30 candidates which are somewhat being supported in India, with 3 of them in their in an advanced stage of trial. Colonel B.R. Shah, who has been from the military, and because we are speaking a lot nowadays about how the Chinese have fired after 45 years, he says that it was not firing, but it was actually physical torture, which led to the deaths of 4 Assam Rifles Jawans back in 1975. He has proof of that. He had seen that. ICMRs, which is the Indian Council for Medical Research, their second sero survey has now ended. This is much broader, and this has covered a number of more districts, 400 districts. It says that in May, the spread of infection was much more than what was initially known. A lot of the states in India have been asked to ramp up their testing. Patients with diabetes and hypertension have now reduced being infected with COVID-19, as per report by the IDSP, which stands for the Integrated Disease Surveillance Program of the Health Ministry. However, they are saying 3 out of the 4 infected nowadays do have comorbidities. In a blow to the Make in India campaign, the World Bank had given us $1 billion loan at the peak of COVID-19 due to in order to be prepared to take on COVID-19. However, as part of that deal, there were a number of clauses against preferential treatment. Make in India does have a lot of preferential clauses where Indian companies and Indian producers or vendors would be given additional protection. That has been stopped. In fact, the railways are going to spend 399 crore to strengthen the infrastructure during the pandemic. There was another loan we had taken from the AIIB, or the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. So all of these have clauses against preferential trade. So there was a public procurement order, preference to make in India. Also the MSME policy, micro, small and medium enterprises, and certain benefits to startups will no longer be applicable now while implementing the national project of Make in India. So as I said, railways were among the major fund takers. The 16 rail zones, as well as the same, there are 16 zones, in railways. Also the metro and production units and others, they took a total of 399.36 crores during this period. The world's largest coach manufacturer, which is the Integral Coach Factory in Chennai, they will also be hit by this because they were also getting a number of preferential projects along with this thing. Right, moving on to the international page. In Thailand, there have been protests against the monarchy, while thousands are marching in Minsk, capital of Belarus, against the last election, which Mr. Lukashenko won. Donald Trump, I referred to this in the morning class as well. He seems excited about the new TikTok deal and about so he has submitted his approval for the Oracle and ByteDance deal, by which Oracle will be a local partner in the US. A judge in the US has, however, blocked the order to remove WeChat because there doesn't seem to be much of a problem now. A very important person passed away. Her name is Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was a Supreme Court justice judge in the US, and she was a warrior for gender parity. The World Health Organization, meanwhile, has cleared a protocol for COVID-19 herbal medicine trials. Some countries in Africa had especially the president of Madagascar, the island nation on the Indian Ocean, they had cleared some deals by which certain herbal traditional medicines would be given as COVID-19 against COVID-19. Those met with widespread criticism from several doctors worldwide. So now that the WHO has cleared a platform so that medicine trials on traditional herbal medicine can take place. This is being confirmed by Mr. Prosper Tumilsimi, who's the regional director of the WHO for the Africa region. Right, the Delhi Capitals won the. Moving on to the sports page, so I think Chennai Super Kings won the first game against the Mumbai Indians. Mahendra Singh Dhoni says experience proved crucial. Rashid Khan, who's an Afghan cricketer, he's of course going to play for the SRH or Sunrisers Hyderabad. So he has his, plans ready for this. The RCB also makes its debut today, the Royal Challengers Bengaluru. The Delhi Capitals won the game yesterday, very exciting game against the Kings 11 Punjab. I remember after 17 overs, Delhi had 100 runs, but last 3 overs they scored a whopping 57 runs. And one of them, Marcus Stoinis, the Australian, pummeled in three sixes and seven fours in his quick fire 57. He also bowled very well because towards the end, Kings 11 Punjab, thanks to the exploits of Mayank Agarwal with the bat, they were set to win. But right at the end, Marcus Stoinis and his team, picked up a number of wickets. So the game was a tie. They went into extra time, or what we call the super over in cricket, and this was won by the Delhi Capitals. So kudos to the Delhi team for starting with a victory. The Tour de France ended yesterday with massive news for the tiny nation of Slovenia. His Slovenian teammate was actually leading for most of the time, Primoz Roglic, but he was finally overtaken at the second last phase by his countryman Tadej Pogacar. So Tadej Pogacar, who will turn 22 on Monday, which is today. Today is his birthday. So he won the race yesterday, becoming the youngest to win the Tour de France in more than 100 years since the Frenchman Henri Cornet won in 1904. So kudos to him. The tiny nation of Slovenia finishing first and second in the Tour de France. Novak Djokovic, meanwhile, continues his return to professional tennis. He has reached the finals of one of the tournaments, the Rome Masters, along with Simona Halep from Romania, who will be playing the women's final. Yesterday, Liverpool versus Chelsea, there was a massive game in the English Premier League. Chelsea got an early red card, which was given to their defender Andres Christensen. Liverpool won 2-0. They actually considered a penalty as well, which the goalkeeper Alisson saved. So it was a very dominant performance. The scoreline doesn't really reflect that. Both the goals scored by Sadio Mane, one of them after yet another blunder, I should say, by the Spanish goalkeeper Kepa Arrizabalaga, who plays for Chelsea. And yesterday was another really interesting game where Tottenham Hotspurs met Southampton. Southampton took the lead 1-0. Southampton also scored the last goal of the game, but in between Spurs scored 5 goals. Shocking, 5 goals, and four of those goals were scored by the same player, Son Heung-min, and all four of those 4 goals were assisted by Harry Kane. It's the first time in the history of the English Premier League that one player has assisted another for all 4 goals, and Harry Kane himself got onto the score sheet as well, scoring the last of the Spurs goals. So the Kane Son partnership is looking extremely deadly right now. With Gareth Bale, who's the new signing, he's going to play not before middle of October because he's injured, got injured while playing for Wales in one of the recent international matches. The Bale Kane Son front three does appear to be something which many teams will be scared of. So let's just see. Till then, Kane and Son, they are making merry. Lucas is also getting his game time. I'll just bring the Times of India for a quick, discussion. Just one or two things from there, especially the business page. This is my code. Do make use of this code when you are enrolling. Right. Some of the political parties, they're saying that the definition of migrant labor needs to be changed because they are people within our country. So why should they be called as migrants? That is something which has come out. So I think that's a welcome move. So there's an article on Mandi alternatives in case one is unable to visit Mandis, how certain agri-based startups, they have actually worked with the likes of Swiggy and Zomato, and catered to the needs, especially um, during the recent lockdowns. And for example, meat, for instance, milk, they do not move through mandis, neither do eggs. But these people, these startups, they have ensured that it has reached point to point. Right. As I said, I wanted to discuss a couple of things from the business pages. There's also a report that about 40% of government schools teaching posts are still vacant in the state of Bihar, and this should be one of the key flashpoints during the elections, upcoming elections in Bihar. Right, moving on to the business page, there's an IPO rush that has returned. A number of fundraising sprees have taken place, the likes of Angel Broking, CAMS, Chemcom, Root Mobile, Happiest Minds, Rosary Biotech, Anthony Waste, and also SBI cards. We have actually covered all of these in our classes, so these have really come up. SBI cards was the largest one, but recently Angel Broking and Happiest Minds also did well. A former CEO of tech giant Cognizant, Mr. Francisco D'Souza, has set up a new $1 billion fund, which will act as a venture capital for future investments. EdTech has been one of the star perform. Before I go to that story, let me just tell you there's a 5% duty on TV panels, which will be from October. But the big business story today is about EdTech companies. EdTech is a common word between education and technology. So their funding has actually jumped four times to $1.5 billion this year. Learning from home is definitely something which is coming up. As all of you have noticed, I'm sure your lives have been so good last couple of months because you've been able to study online. So among the things that have taken place, Byju's remains the top investment, top company to have received investment, followed by Unacademy, and there is Vedantu, which is third. I can't be, the fact does remain. So Byju's, their primary funders have been General Atlantic, Owl, and Tiger, while Unacademy's investments have come from the likes of Steadview, Bloom, Nexus, Sequoia, and General Atlantic. Vedantu has received from GGV, Quatuk, Omdiar, Tiger, Axel, and Westbridge. So we do see a couple of common ones as well, which are investing into at least two of them with the assumption that they will all grow. There are others as well which are coming up. This Teachment, for instance, which raised first round from capital from Snapdeal founders as Titan Capital and Better Capital last month. Credit Suisse has also invested in Upgrad. mm, which is actually promoted by the Screwwalas, Ronnie Screwwala being the head, who's also a top film producer. Right. India's first COVID detector has also been developed. It has been named as Feluda, yeah, in honor of the legendary detective from Bengali fiction. Feluda's movies, I've seen quite a few, read a few of those books. So amazing books and movies which were made by Satyajit Ray. He's the writer and he's the director as well. So Feluda is the name of a fictional private detective in a series of popular Bengali novels, short stories, and films written and directed by Satyajit Ray. So this was developed in about 100 days by the CSIR Institute of Genomics and Integrative Biology, which is in Delhi, along with the Tata Group. The test has been named Feluda. So this will diagnose the virus in 2 hours and promises to be low cost. Right. So that was pretty much it today. Uttarakhand and Himachal, they have both eased the quarantine norms for travelers. So Delhiites, you can now look forward to just don't do too much of crowd. Taj Mahal is also set to reopen today to the public. So I'm going to keep the session open for a couple of minutes. This is my last slide. AD09, is the code which I use. So once you use this, you will receive a 10% flat off. So whatever you wish to comment, please write down. I'll be happy to take down your questions and queries. I mean, what? Right. I think we can wrap it up now. Wrap up the session. Thank you so much, guys. In about an hour's time, hour नहीं उससे थोड़ा ज़्यादा हाँ in about कितना हुआ about 80 minutes I'm gonna start my special class at 4 p.m. I'm starting with the March current affairs as usual. Like every month there'll be three classes, so I'm starting with March 1, and that will be on unacademy.com. So please do join in there, all of you, at 4 p.m. sharp. You may be there before that as well. Right. See you all. Thank you so much. And tomorrow as well, just to let you know, tomorrow as well, I have two YouTube sessions, same timings, 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to do Sunday's paper because Sundays was also not done. And then at around same time as today, 1:30, I'll be doing tomorrow's paper. So looking forward to both the classes. Tomorrow again, same schedule, 4 p.m. There's a special class. Right. See you all then once again. So just look into our channel as well. This channel, क्रैक मैनेजमेंट एग्जाम, इसके प्लीज़ बाकी सेशंस भी आप लोग देख लीजिए बिकॉज देयर इज अ लॉट टू नो फ्रॉम देयर. देयर आर अदर टीचर्स एज वेल, सो उनके क्लासेस भी देखिए. देयर विल बी अ लॉट ऑफ लर्निंग. राइट. थैंक यू.